going to talk about the NFT phenomenon, of course, and the digitalization of art and where it all started back in the 50s, I believe, and even earlier maybe. So very much welcome. Remember that you can ask questions. Please put down here below in the Q&A your questions, and I will read them out as they go, as you ask them. Don't hesitate to interrupt us at any time. The Wise Art platform, which is an entrusted NFT platform, is also now onboarding artists, digital artists, as well as physical artworks with a certified NFT link to it. Behind me, if you can see, that's a work by Daniel Ibarra. He's a Geneva-based artist, and he will also be on the platform selling his works physically as well as, of course, digitally. So hopefully we will be building a savvy community along the next few weeks and so, and the platform will be live sometime Q1, hopefully February 14th, which is our launch date. We will be participating in Davos at the World Economic Forum, so that will be exciting, and we'll have some presentations there as well. I'd like to introduce, without further ado, our speakers. We have Georg Pack, who's joining us from Zurich, and we have Frederick in Geneva. Georg, you're an art historian, you're an art advisor specialized in modern art, I believe, and right now you are totally hooked on the NFT phenomenon and the crypto punks and mutts and lazy apes. So can you tell us a little bit more? What pushed you in that direction?
Well, I'm actually based in Zug.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So it was around 2016, 17 when I kind of felt that there was something happening, with blockchain. There was a huge movement here. A lot of people came to Zug, and there were a lot of meetups, and I was always an art advisor, and so I got in touch with these new startups, entrepreneurs, and I was also, I saw that there are also artists who deal with blockchain as a medium. And I started to do my research and learn about more and more artists that have been using blockchain. I mean, they did sculptures, they did works on paper, they did natively digital art, etc. I mean, the whole spectrum, basically. And so that's how I got into this whole thing. And of course, I've been already very interested in digital art for the past, I would say, 20 years or so. I was already quite interested when the internet art movement came up in the 90s. And I was always surprised that it never had an audience, it never had a market. And suddenly people were talking about this ERC 721 token standard, a novelty where you could basically create a token for a digital artwork. This was, it was made popular by the CryptoPunks and the Crypto Kitties in 2017. And so I was getting into this whole NFT hype. It was a small hype in 2017, and then I did an exhibition in 2018 where I also showed the CryptoPunks for the first time. I showed some other artists like Kevin Abosch, Manolo, Robbie Barrett, Mario Klingemann, etc. So it was a very exciting time, something very new at this time, and I was quite surprised how this was picked up by the market so quickly, and the kind of prices that we see on and also the auctions. It was very big surprise for me, and I think for the whole art world.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that the auction houses, the traditional auction houses embraced it. And then of course you've got these, general platforms of NFTs in particular. Would you say that the artists that you were following 20 years ago are the ones that are popular today, or is there a new school that sort of supplanted them?
Well, I would say a lot of the artists from the internet era, some of them have stopped doing art. Some of them are being rediscovered now, like Jody was shown at Art Basel this year. Actually, one of my friends, Johannes Gees, a Swiss artist, he has done a very successful NFT project just recently. It's called Klee 02, like referring to Paul Klee. And it's actually the second on-chain generative artwork after the autoglyphs. It was done like in the same week. And it's some sort of historical artwork. So he has been an internet artist in the 90s already. But this artwork is something new, and I think they're slowly coming into the space now. But the big stars are certainly more like a younger generation, new artists who have just started art with NFTs.
It's interesting to see that the older guys are hanging in there. I think it's a great thing because they have that experience of the market as well, perhaps more so than the younger generations, no?
Absolutely, yeah.
Great. Now let me introduce Frederick to you. So Frederick is from Geneva. I've actually been following his courses, so very instructive. Thank you. Frederick is an art historian. He's originally from France. He's also an author about contemporary art. It's a very good book. It's called Parlez-vous l'art contemporain in French. I don't know if it was translated.
No, I don't think. Maybe sometime. I don't know.
And I believe you've also worked at L'Hôtel Drouot, which is it is the oldest auction house in the world. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you think about all this digital art becoming the new trend.
Well, I was very interested for myself when I was working at the Hôtel Drouot, both to artists, contemporary artists, and to the art market. I was training for new collectors and for professionals of art, and was observing always. I'm always observing the new tendencies of art market and contemporary art. So 15 years ago, I organized a colloquium with Maurice Benayoum and Miguel Chevalier and others from the pioneers of digital art. And it was very interesting because we tried on that moment to separate who were just techno crazy men making entertainments, very interesting parties, rave parties, etc., with a lot of lights, etc. And they considered, as they knew how to use a computer, that they were artists. Then we were trying to understand what were the 3 or 4 characteristics which are relevant to consider that they are real artists. We saw that, for example, one part was very important and comes from conceptual art of the 50s of the 20th century, which is the dematerialization. For example, in conceptual art, you did not need to have a real piece of art, a material piece of art, but you could have just a certificate. So this is, we are talking of 70 years ago. We are not talking of yesterday. And the second source, the second origin could be the idea of interactivity, interaction in a social way with a lot of people and the tool of computers and digital art helps a lot to build a community. Even if on social network and etc. And the third thing was the interest that people had about the technology itself, and of course computers, robots, I don't know, all those electronics, included electronic music. And but the very important thing was to imagine who were the artists, very relevant for the using of this new tool. And it was a little bit complicated. It stays complicated now to separate those two way of seeing. But the fact is, most collectors, as in the video market, for example, they did not want to enter in that market, or even in museums too. They were very shy with digital art. They were maybe less shy when digital tools was taken from very famous artists in other areas of, or in other mediums. But when they were specifically more digital, it was very complicated. And as Georg, I was very surprised to see that at the end, those NFT was the way to understand that there was something, maybe too much something, but something very solid, and now it's integrated in the market. It's very interesting. Yeah,
absolutely. Do you think it has brought a new profile of collector? Because I mean, we've had digital art, as you said, for a long time. Those collectors who were collecting, I don't know, artists like Vera Molnar, for example, who started working with computers before she called it art, basically.
Or David Hockney with
absolutely.
the iPhone, etc.
And those are still very traditional. And George and I were talking earlier, just before we started, about the fact that this new market has actually democratized maybe the approach or the niche or the club type thing of the collector, and that we're getting more people interested in the younger generations who may not have considered Christie's or Sotheby's before.
Yeah, of course.
So the entry barrier is much lower, like you can buy art for 100 or a couple hundred Swiss francs. So you don't need to enter a gallery, you just buy it on your computer. So we are basically talking also to the retail art collectors who might not dare to enter a gallery, so I think it's a very interesting new crowd of collectors entering the market.
Yeah. It's true that there is all entry levels, but I mean, on the other hand, as you said earlier, some of the records are staggering. I mean, we've gone into tens of millions basically overnight. So that's also some, I don't know, it's a sign that there is a demand, obviously, for something like that. On the Wise Art platform, what I'm trying to do as the art director is to have a little bit of, not so much of a chaos, but to try and organize and sort them, and to have maybe somewhat of a committee, a vetting committee. But on the other hand, building the community, I'm actually seeing that there is, as you said, all sorts, and it's from every spectrum. So we'll try and do that as well, to be open to a lot of different offers, in fact. And we've had requests from museums to put in, masterworks by recognized artists who are who are traditional artists. And then we're getting lots and lots of demand of emerging artists in that spectrum. So it's very interesting. We've got demands from all the way from Canada, Japan. It's very interesting at the moment. So that's quite good. It should broaden the spectrum a little bit. What are your clients? Are you advising them now, Georg, to buy digital art, or is it still 50-50 with the physical?
Quite frankly, there's a lot of interest. I mean, my clients are coming with the requests to enter into this NFT market. They want to learn about how to buy NFTs. What are the NFTs they should buy? I mean, I have clients who have spent some like a serious amount of money buying NFTs, and the same kind of amounts that they spent for buying like a Banksy or something, you know. And this is a quite interesting phenomenon. It's not like the buyers, you know, who buy NFTs are only like new techies. There's also the traditional art collectors who are entering this market now.
That's interesting, and it leads us to a question which we have from Sarah Johnson. Thank you very much for being with us. Her question reads, where do you think the role of the gallerist and dealer is evolving into? Many new artists do not understand the NFT technology. Could the dealer become their creator digital agent? Oh, that's a difficult role to take on. What do you think?
Well, I think you just have to learn about these new modalities. I mean, you know, there's art like there's collectors who are looking for specific NFTs, or I know about some NFTs that might fit into a specific collection. I also help artists to develop art projects, to develop a strategy for NFTs, to build a community. You know, I mean, I think you can still play a role as an art dealer or a gallerist in our new NFT world. It's not any different, but you really have to learn about this new market. So it's not anymore, you know, building up exhibitions in physical spaces, but building content in a digital space.
Also, Frederick, maybe you have in your group of friends and surroundings you've dealt and you've met digital artists from the past, as you just explained. But do you think that artists today, they're all using computers anyway, so it's just a matter of getting that extra knowledge?
Well, first, yes, we can consider that many artists who I'm meeting or working with, they are using, of course, at one moment or at another, digital part in the creation or in the communication or in the production of their artwork. But for example, I'm representing 5 artists. And well, this is not a statistic about 5 artists, it's impossible. But imagine that on those 5 artists, there are 2 who are now trying. One did already NFTs, and another one is trying to understand exactly how it works. And it's very important for us, we who are working with artists, yes, to explain, even if we don't really understand ourselves, how it works really, but the principles, the question of cryptocurrency, that we need to buy the statue of what is an NFT, etc. The possibilities of doing it, etc. So it's very important to have people more specialized like Georg, who can advise gallerists, artists, etc. Because artists, they are hungry of that. This is not just, we could make money with that because there is that record incredible, etc. How you said. This is more, well, a new tool, interesting. Okay,
yeah, so
what can I do with that? What can I do with that?
A next movement in history of art. Do you think it will inscribe itself as a movement?
Next movement, it's too much. I think it's too. It's giving too much importance to the medium itself. It's a new medium. Would you say that land art or performance is both a movement or a medium? It's complicated. It's both a movement because there were an ideology, there were a movement, an intellectual movement. There were, for example, the willing to escape from museum, galleries, market, etc. Do we have that same movement with a common idea, with a critical background, with artists working collectively all together to build something? I don't think.
Maybe it's a bit early to say.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Right now, I can't feel it, but maybe it will be like the painting, the oil painting in tube for the Impressionists. Maybe it will build the new plenarism, or on the contrary, the insidism, and maybe we'll have something growing from that. The very sure thing is that it's very attractive new tool with its own specificity, and that specificity, for me, I think, or I feel, maybe more that I think, that it's the question of uniqueness, the question of be precious with something which can be, as was saying, this German philosopher, I've lost his name right now, with the multiplicity of the prints, the photography, etc. That there is a change of paradigm when photography has been invented. For example, the relationship between a viewer and the piece of art was very different, because your photo could be
duplicated,
infinitely duplicated. Yes.
Yeah.
This is
absolutely, and that's where
this is, and people, they don't understand how we consider that it's unique, while at the same time everybody can see the thing, and this is what is interesting, precisely.
And I think the ownership for a collector is very important. There's that ego trip, of course, but then there's ownership. We have more questions. We have one from Marcella Moser. Thank you. How can we ensure that the IP, so the intellectual property, that's exactly what we're talking about, remains with the original artist? And if we're adding old masters onto the blockchain, for example, the Mona Lisa was added to the blockchain on OpenSea, but it was clearly not created by Leonardo. All right, so what angle does that? That's almost a museum question, and that was going to be my next theme. So what do you think, Frederick? If the museums start doing NFTs on their artworks, has it to be an emerging artist who's appropriating himself with the work, or should it be the exact twin of the work?
Well, this is a real important point, very interesting. You have the same thing, for example, for tapestry or for lithographies. Picasso was not working at the same when he did the Suite Vollard of lithography. It was a print way in a certain amount of number. But it was specifically, he was working specifically for that technique and inventing something original for that technique, not original in the result. But and the same thing, for example, when Matisse made the tapestry, he was just not giving a carton of tapisserie as if it was a painting. I consider that it's more interesting, many more interesting, not to duplicate something which does exist before, but to create something with that new technology, precisely.
The idea as well is not just for the art market, but I suppose for digitalization to make it perennial in the future for museums. That's a different use altogether. We actually have another question, Zenya Kwan. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name, but Zenya. So she's asking, can you please share a case advising NFT collectors which want to link the dots and pieces into a collection and to bring additional meaning through togetherness. Maybe that's one for Georg.
Clearly.
Shall I read it again? I mean, basically,
yeah, I think I'm not quite sure if I understood this.
Yeah, it's a little complicated.
So Xenia is asking whether we can build the community, and through the NFT collectors, is there she's talking about linking the dots and the pieces into a collection. So, you know, making it a communal, is that what, I think that's what it is.
Well, there are some, you know, like art projects which are community projects, you know, like, for example, these profile pic projects, they have in a certain way, it's also community, you know, you have a lot of people who share the same interest. There are some utilities attached to these projects, so you are part of a club, for example, or you can participate in some things, collaborate I mean, a good example is the Bored Ape Yacht Club or the Cryptomats, where you basically, if you own a Cryptomat, you get special access to the writings and the speeches of Kenny Schachter, or the Bored Ape Yacht Club. They are organizing some exclusive parties for their members. So this is a communal art project, if you want to look at it.
And there's all these followers, like now with, you know, with mediums like Twitter, you can join, follow, whatever, and then you read the comments, and there's something happening there as well. I find that is very much community building. We have another question. We have lots of questions. It's great. From Sarah Johnson's, do artists realize that they need to get and maintain a wallet or a private key forever, longer than 50 years after their death, to keep receiving royalties from secondary sales, and the issues of transferring that key to their heirs if that were to pass on to the next generation?
Oh, it's technical.
Yeah.
Very good point. I mean, you always have to take care of your private keys. You have to think about what happens when you die, and certainly a lot of these private keys also got lost.
Yeah. But then wouldn't you say, I mean, it might not be the right example, but I mean, you know, there was a lot of wealth, whether it was art or gold, stored in banks. And after the Second World War, well, obviously we didn't know where to, you know, like it's still in the banks today, actually. So around the world, that's what happens, unfortunately. You know, hopefully there won't be cases like that again. Kevin Crampton, thank you. So he's asking if we have any thoughts on how NFTs might expand beyond the digital arts, like the written word, performance, anything that can be delivered digitally has the potential to be exchanged as an NFT. Yeah, I think that's right. But George, yeah, both Frederick was talking about music as well. So
yeah, I mean, music is a very good example. You know, like there is a startup in London which is organizing jam sessions, so you can just join and play in a jam session, and they will be giving the possibilities not to just listen to the music like on a podcast, but also to buy a recording as an NFT. Or NFTs can also be applied for tickets, for concert tickets, etc.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just art. I mean, this NFTs in gaming, fashion, the metaverse, it's a huge field. So
yeah,
art is even just a very small part of it when we look at the whole picture.
I think the sports industry too is going to jump in there, and already has, with the basketball top shots and things like that. So I mean, yeah, NFTs can be applied to anything. Basically, it's an IT link to an idea or an object or a piece of digital art. Frederick, what do you think? You've worked with musicians too, huh?
Sometimes, but I made an exhibition here in Geneva And the transporter of the artworks, he came and say, okay, I'm doing art too. Okay, I say, what is this kind of art? I'm collecting the Panini stickers, you know, of footballers, and I make NFTs of that, and I put a lot of money in development for that, etc. So this is the extension of the field of the arts. It's very strange and very interesting. And what was the question? Sorry, 16.
Yeah, the question was just whether it was going to expand the NFT phenomenon outside of the visual arts. But as
yeah. That's clear. That's incredible. And this is another point which make that some collectors, classical, traditional collectors, because I'm working more with traditional collectors than Georg. I'm working. I saw the youngers. They want when I was leading a group, conducting a group in Art Basel, for example, the younger of the group, he said, okay, why do we don't watch for NFT, for the gallery of NFT, etc. And he was really interested to buy it and to know how to invest too. And there is a question of investment for many. Of course, there is sometimes that's 50-50 invest and art love, but others they are more the idea of NFTs about investment too. But that's true. They ask themselves, but what am I really buy? And knowing that, for example, there is you said you were talking about Twitter, and knowing that there were the first message of Twitter sold as an NFT for an incredible amount of money at the end, even if it's not the price of people, of course. But they asked themselves, what is the bound? Where are the boundaries of art and no art? And that's a real question, and it could be interesting to have more precisions about that to be confident with this new medium.
Absolutely. And also, I think that's a question that's been going on since the Greek times.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
We have another question from Alexandra. I believe she's in Edmonton. So hello, Alexandra. Thanks for being there. She actually has two questions. What are our speakers' thoughts on the use of crypto technology in the traditional art market beyond the NFTs? So, for example, to use the blockchain to provide price transparency by tracking sale, purchase prices of the physical works. So yeah, we moved from NFTs to blockchain, but is that an important component now, from now on, that everything can be recorded and in a way that can never be changed? Georg, is that something that your customers or your clients think is important?
I think, blockchain technology, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a ledger which records certain things that happened, but question is whether you have an identifier or someone who says it really happened, So you have to attach the painting or sculpture with some sort of a chip or something that is really giving you the certainty that somebody has lent the artwork to someone else or sold the artwork to someone else. So you could put this on on the blockchain.
The blockchain, yeah. Well, provenance is always very, important in the sale of a traditional physical artwork. And so obviously today, if somebody, I'll talk about a Picasso, but if somebody wanted to enter the Picasso as a physical piece, I mean, traditional just as a archival medium, whatever gets put in today, we need to trust that what gets put in is true. But then from today onwards, of course, that will reflect the absolute progress of the work or dispatch, every exhibition, every book, bibliography, etc. And of course, price sales will be recorded. But what goes prior is, dependent on whoever enters it, really.
I think it's, it can help to create a catalog resume, like put
definitely.
it on blockchain. And
then Alexandra's second question is, how is the volatility and high speculation in the crypto market and the NFT managed? It's not, there is no governance yet, as far as I understand. Is it a big risk?
I think it's nothing different than the traditional art market. You know, like it's just a faster pace.
Yeah,
so things are happening very fast, but I mean, also looking at some of the young artists like Nicolas Party, or like, which have huge prices, and it went also quite fast. I mean, it's a very young artist.
yeah.
I mean, you can see the same with the NFTs, and there's also some artists come, some go. Like suddenly nobody talks about it anymore. I mean, it's the same as with any art.
Yeah, I think
we could advise to people who are asking themselves if they are making a good investment, first to understand what is the guideline, the artistic line of the artist. Is it really interesting? If there is a continue, something interesting. Secondly, there are many artists now, you were evoking them, Georg, or maybe you, 16, who are famous and who makes now some NFTs. So this is, of course, more secure if you take an NFT from someone who made his proofs in other mediums.
Yeah, it's just as you said.
And thirdly, Georg reminds us that most of the NFT are not at 60 and more million of dollars. Of course, you can buy most of the NFT are less than some thousands of dollars. So you don't have to invest right now in the craziness of speculation. It's not necessary.
Yeah, it's true. It's going fast, and it's a little bit the Wild West, but it's definitely, it's exciting as well. And if you want to be a part of it, it's affordable. And again, as an art historian, but as a collector, you need to do your homework and find out what you're buying and what you would like to buy, and maybe construct a collection with some sort of leitmotif as well, which is interesting in the digital.
Yeah. I also usually advise clients to buy artworks that could be historically interesting. If an artist invents a new technology, a new algorithm, a new functionality, this could be something that is historically interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
The first on-chain generative artwork, or the first NFT, or
this is a question of the background. Like in traditional art, there are some pieces which are spectacular, but not deep in their thinking or in their researches, etc. So, as a buyer, even as a speculator, I think you'd better to have the information about the real interest of work and the historical background of the artist, of course.
Yeah. I forgot with all these questions, but I have to inform everybody that we are recording this session, and it's also going on live at the moment on YouTube. The recording will be sent to everybody at a later stage and will also be visible on all our social media. So apologies, I should have said that at the beginning.
It's done now.
It's done now. We've got one more question here. The record, it's actually a fact. It's information from Marcella. Thank you very much. The record label Universal Music has just bought some apes and that will be made in a rock band. So there will be many collaborations in the future. And that's another good point. Yeah, things will cross-sell and will collaborate. And that's also interesting. Thanks for that, Marcella. Yeah, we went on, let me see, sort of lost track a little bit. I'm really grateful for all the questions. Keep on coming. Keep them coming. Again, like we talked a little bit about provenance, we talked about, museums using digitalization to create archives, etc. But I also think it's a means of fundraising, no? That people are saying that you can, for example, have a concept of an exhibition, sell the NFT, and then only then create the exhibition. Do you think that may be a new way to do business in the art world in the future?
I totally believe so. Actually, I'm going to organize an exhibition in an institution next year, and in order to finance the exhibition, we will also be launching some NFTs. And I think it's certainly a way to do the fundraising for institutions. Absolutely.
So that's great. That's something that most people don't talk about, is can be used as a work tool, basically, as a new type of investment in that respect. If you did that, how would it work? Like if you bought an NFT of a future exhibition, would it mean you get a special catalog, or you've got access with your friends to a private party inside the digital exhibition, or how does it work?
Well, I mean, we're selling the NFTs as artworks mainly, but there's also the possibility to add a utility to these artworks. Like you could, for example, add free entrance to the exhibition, to some special events. Mm-hmm. So you could get a free catalog, things like that. I mean, that's quite common. I mean, like for example, I like the crypto mats that you can see on my back. Those people who bought these crypto mats, they could get a shirt with a designed by Kenny Schachter. So he sent them away for free. So these are kind of like the goodies that you get if you're part of this club.
Yeah, that's right. Do you want to tell us a little bit about them? Who are they by? The ones behind you?
Well, they are by Kenny Schachter, who's a famous art critic, artist, curator, and also collector. He's, I mean, most people know him from his columns on ArtNet. Mm-hmm. He's been writing for many years, and especially he brought like the crypto art and NFT into the like the traditional art world through his probably around 12, 15 texts that he wrote on ArtNet on the topic. So it's a very valuable source to learn about NFTs. But he's also done his own digital art. I mean, he's been an artist since 30 years or something, and now he's quite successful. I mean, he's represented by some very good galleries. He was actually the first artist who had a booth with NFTs at Art Basel. So yeah, it's very successful. I mean,
so highly collectible, guys. This is a good hint from a free hint from Georg here for you guys.
Thank you, Georg, for the advice. And maybe we'll be rich, of course, in maybe 100 years.
now this maybe to say something about the cryptomats. It's a bit like a Tumblr of all kinds of NFTs. He's playing around with this idea of the frogs and the dogs and like you have all kinds of NFTs, and it's almost a little bit trashy and cynical. So it's a very, I find it a very funny and also very well done profile pic drop, and it was also very successful. He was actually launching them, and within maybe 2 hours they were all sold out. I mean, there were like 10,000 such generated pictures, and it is a very vibrant community, and he's taking it you know, to the next level. So he's always presenting them also at art fairs, and he did a series of memes with these NFTs. So it's a very, very nice project, I think.
That's cool. Thank you. And the sense of humor is important. We have so many more questions, guys, so I'm just going to run through them. David, he's David from Spain, David Abad. Anybody has thought about the new containers to show this type of art? Okay, that's interesting. So it's a new exhibition type thing. He says screens or new security ones. What about this? So yeah, creating new exhibition spaces. That's obviously, you know, always interesting as well.
Well, there's a gallery in New York. It's called Super Chief Gallery, which is, to my knowledge, the first gallery which is just put up screens and they're only doing NFT shows. So you basically enter the gallery and they don't have to do any shipments, etc. It's always set up screens and they do exhibitions on screens. So I think the hardware still has to develop, and also kind of like the communication between the wallets and the hardware.
Yeah.
That is a tricky part, which is not so developed yet, but I think that will come.
There are not really stakes of security in presenting the NFT. No, they can be presented on every support. I imagine on screens or catalogs, I don't know, posters, etc. Georg, they are not specifically certain obligations or security questions, because there is a separation now between the NFT itself and who hold the NFT and the presentation of the image coming or duplicating the NFT. No, is it work like?
I mean, we have to differentiate between the IP and the NFT. I mean, the IP is not what you buy.
Of course,
so you're not actually allowed to duplicate it unless you do it privately for yourself.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can't just commercialize unless the artist has really given you the IP rights, and it has to be very clearly handed over to you.
But you can present the visualization in every in every possible.
It's the same as you would buy a painting, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, so you can lend it to exhibitions, etc. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we've got more questions still. So Marcella comments that it will change the way music, but obviously music, art, sports events, everything is sold. The container idea, to get back to David's question, is not new either. I mean, we had containers on the beach in Miami, 20 years ago. So, but what I think you brought up a good point, Georg, about the logistics, because I mean, transporting artwork is a risky business. It can be damaged, it can be stolen, it can be, you know, so that's not going to happen, hopefully, over the internet waves or the web, unless we run out of electricity one day. But that's another question. David has another comment. Do you think one day we may have authentic holograms of the Gioconda, of the Mona Lisa, projected in his sitting room?
Maybe we can
holograms are support already. Yeah.
Maybe when David will have his hologram, because it will become one day, of course. We would be curious to know the conversation he had with the Gioconda. It's very interesting. So David, come back with us at one moment.
We'll let you know. We'll all visit you if you have the Mona Lisa in your sitting room. Then we have Sophia. Thank you, Sophia Bennett. How does one maneuver the issues associated with copyright when considering moving traditional art into the digital realm? So that would mean, how do we control the copyright when we manufacture a twin of an existing artwork? Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Georg or Frederick, but every NFT is associated with a smart contract, and in there you can put any conditions you like. And I would also suggest they be revised by a lawyer so that everything is covered. No, would you say?
I think the great thing with blockchain technology and NFT is that basically you have a date of a creation. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, as we know, the copyright is not registered like a trademark. So the copyright is there once the artwork is done. Now, once you have created an NFT, you have a date stamp when it has been created. And if anybody is creating something that is similar or is a copy of that, you can very easily prove it. So, and, you know, I mean, of course, looking at the CryptoPunks, how many times have they been copied? You know, like if they wanted, they could just take down everything. You know, Larva Labs could say, okay, we don't want these copies. They're all copies, copyright infringements. So
then again,
of course, for most artists, it is also interesting if you get copied. I mean, if you are being copied, it means you are important. So, but I mean, looking at the punks, you have the exact same copy of the punks on other blockchains. You know, it's really exactly the same. So I don't know. I mean, it's very similar to Banksy. You know, Banksy was. At the beginning, a lot of people were copying it and doing merchandising products, and Banksy didn't care because it was interesting to spread around the images. But suddenly we started to care about the copyrights.
Yeah. Frederick, what do you say, other than Coco Chanel, who said it was great to be copied?
Yeah, of course, that's true that this is a sign of success, but there is a great question on that, because we will, every new technology had these questions. I remember then when photography was not considered as art, and remember that some, for example, prints just for newspapers, which were not precisely vintage prints signed by the real photograph. There is a statue very different because things has been lost in the nature, and there is always one moment that a merchant or gallerist wants to use it as if it was a real artwork. So there are a lot of questions. Of course, I remember, I understand very well about this question of authenticity and guarantee of not being copied. But it seems that the blockchain is the solution. So it seems that inside of the identity of that new medium is the question of authenticity and uniqueness.
Yeah,
it seems that
that's
this is
the core.
the heart. This is the point. This is the heart. So maybe step by step, people, they will not be worried about that.
I think you're right. We have another question. Time is moving along, so we have maybe that'll be our last question from Thanarat. He's asking you guys: do you collect NFTs, and where do you see where NFTs will be in the next 5 to 10 years? So, do you both collect NFTs? Will be the number one question. Georg?
Georg, yes.
I mean, I've bought some NFTs, of course. I wouldn't call myself a collector. I think they will, in 5 or 10 years, it will be just like the art market, you know, like museums will have NFT collections. There will be, I mean, it's also an asset class for some people, you know, like buying some cryptocurrencies, buy some NFTs. I think it's definitely here to stay.
Yeah. I was at a conference last week where there was maybe 150 people of all age groups, but say the youngest would have been early 30s. And the speaker asked out in the audience who had crypto wallets. and more than half the room put their hands up. So yeah, I think it's here to stay as well. And if you have crypto wallets and you're doing well with your cryptocurrencies, well, then what nicer way to spend it as to buy crypto art? Isn't that right? So yeah, we're 5 minutes away from the end. I would like to thank everybody very much. I'd also like to remind you of the next webinar, which will be on December 2nd, where we will actually explore how it works, what you actually have to do as an artist, or even as a collector, if you want to resell if you want to create an NFT and if you want to resell your NFT. And we'll talk about royalties as well for the artists. So it'll be another interesting topic. I'd like to thank Frederick very much. And Georg, do you have any final words? Maybe I'll start with Frederick.
Well, this is just for the future, and I'm linked with the last question. I hope and I think that the NFT will be no more just spectacular communication phenomena, because we have the feeling a lot of people, they are a little bit angry against NFT, thinking that this is only communication for entrepreneurs who try to promote the cryptocurrency, the blockchain, all that technology, and using art only as a pretext to say, okay, see, this is really authentic, this is really creative, this is really the future, etc. And I think this bad part of maybe we have, and which explain a little of those incredible records, will be finished in few time. And of course, artists, they begin and they will continue, and it will be, yes, of course, a part of the art market, and more important, a part of the art. Yeah,
I think you're right. I think the speculation aspect will soon be, it'll still be there, but the other uses of the blockchain and the NFTs will become more apparent. Would you agree with that, Georg?
Yeah, absolutely. And let's not forget, it's not just about NFTs, it's about digital art, you know, and
absolutely.
That's as Frederick has mentioned as well. It started in the 50s and the 60s. There was like a very big movement of, like, the first big movement in digital art, lots of important exhibitions. And since then, there has always been some sort of like a history of digital art. And I think with the NFTs, we might now be aware of this part of art history, which has, I mean, retrospectively, I would say it's a very important art history, but it has never been in the focus of museums and exhibitions. So hopefully we will see more exhibitions highlighting these, this art movement or art medium in future.
Yeah, I think we will. I definitely think we will. I think collectors will also have their own exhibition halls digitally or in this metaverse, and they'll be enjoying to fill the walls up. I'd like in that respect to also remind everybody, or the artists who are in the audience today, that we're onboarding as I speak now, and if anybody needs any help with actually doing the NFTs as an artist, don't hesitate to contact us. We'll be more than happy to help. We've got all the technology, and Wysky's been in the security business or cybersecurity business for so many years, over a quarter of a century almost. So I think we can help in that respect. But I think people in their dining room or whatever, they'll start having, just like we display photographs, we'll be displaying our artworks, and they'll be original artworks and unique, and collectors will be proud to show them on a private basis or not. So I think it's great. Thank you again very much, everybody. I'm going to sign off and look forward to talking to you soon. Bye.
Bye.